All right, so there's a property and value for CSS that we haven't really talked about, and that's display. The display property is going to allow you to choose how the boxes actually arrange themselves, which we haven't had to do because we haven't really had any elements or boxes that are arranging themselves on their own and spacing themselves out. We've always spaced them out or put them in a specific location using float and height and width. So this is a new feature because we do have three boxes or three links that are organizing themselves, right? They're sitting on top of each other. And so what I want to do first, and I know that this is terrible because I just had you create a whole template and all these things, is we created these break tags here, and I want to delete those real quick. So right now I'm on my codepen.html. I'm deleting the break tags between home and codepen because I want to show how by default they're going to sit side by side. In the CSS, inside of our nav A link, we're going to use the display property. So I'm going to put display. Now, when I put the colon, there are a lot of display options. The display option is going to go ahead and it actually doesn't have a default value, but you can see that they're usually sitting side by side. But we have a bunch of options, and the base one is inline. So I'm going to choose inline here and close that. And you're going to see that pretty much nothing changes. They sit side by side, and the height and width properties have no effects at this point. So when you do inline, nothing changes. Just list them side by side, okay? If I do, instead of inline, block, you're gonna see that it actually pushes them, each one of them, and makes them span the width of the nav. This is important because block creates a break, almost like a paragraph tag. It creates a break between each element. So each A tag has a break after it, but because it's become a block element, it's going to span the width of the page unless you specify the width inside of here. Because block elements span the width of the page by default. We've seen this many times. Div tags, header, nav, footer. Anytime we create those for the first time and we never put a height or width, they are then getting they're going to be the width of the page by default, right? The third one I want to show you is called inline block, where it's combining all three together, or both of, not all three, both of those together. So inline block will make it so that they are in line with each other. So they'll sit side by side, but when they reach a section, they're going to pop to the next page and be listed, and it's creating that space. So it's a little bit of both, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so you have different versions here of what you want to do. Now, if you want an inline block, making sure there is a break between each one, you can have those break tags back. So I'm going to go ahead and put those break tags back because I do want them to, in fact, break between each one, no matter how wide the page is. And now I have not only an inline section, but now what it's doing is it's creating that spacing between each one and stacking them on top of each other so they don't overlap like they did before. Because if I delete this, I'm going to cut it real quick just so you can see, they're going to overlap. But when I put it back, it's going to keep in mind the height, the width, the padding, all those kinds of things. So not only can I have a padding, but let's say I have a margin of like 2%. Now I can create space between them. So padding is going to add that white around it. Margin is going to create space between them. So I can increase the padding to like 7%, for instance. It's going to make them bigger. But now they're looking like buttons, and they're being stylized and not overlapping on top of each other. So I can go File, Save All, and then I can preview this site on the web. And you're going to see that now they're looking like buttons that are very much, they're professional looking, right? And you wouldn't even know that we didn't create any images. They're just CSS buttons. And when I click on the home page, they look exactly the same. If I go to W3 Schools, you'll see that it will open on there, and I have to hit the back arrow to go back. So that's the last thing we're going to fix here before we are all done with this and are able to put this on the web.